Hello, and welcome to Socially Holistic Podcast. Socially Holistic helps coaches and holistic entrepreneurs and women in heart-centered businesses make sense of social media so they can build their own online network and get more clients. As a heart-centered business owner, you do amazing work. Holly's mission in life is to help you help more people. Help us help more women in business with a 5-star review of this podcast. Please leave one today over at iTunes. The more women who find out about this podcast, the more heart-centered businesses will be successful. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to Socially Holistic Podcast. Today we are with Marianne Cantwell of Free Range Humans, who helps you create life on your own terms. Welcome, Marianne.
Thanks, Holly.
I'm so excited to have you here, and I love the concept of your business and your business name and how you help people move from being career cage humans to free range humans. So
Thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit about that concept?
So free range humans is the idea that as humans, I believe that we are not made to be trapped in a cubicle cage or in a cage of our own making, which is what we often do when we become entrepreneurs or start becoming solopreneurs. We end up creating these rules and these expectations for ourselves that actually deny us the freedom that we started the whole thing for. So free range humans is very much about how do you create freedom from a really authentic place, looking at what you want to do in the world, who you want to be, what's your personality, and what's the lifestyle that you want. Whether it's traveling the world or staying at home, doing something that you love, how do you create something on your terms without creating that cage that so many of us create for ourselves when we go self-employed? So that's really what we're all about here.
I think that's so important. I think it's really, really important that you identify that self-created cage, because so many people focus on, I want to escape the corporate cage and do my own thing, but then it's like they create the same thing for themselves.
Yeah, and it's something we all have to be aware of, right? Because we all fall into those traps. So yes. I'm sure we'll get into that throughout the interview.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about your background.
So I did the career cage escape thing, unsurprisingly. I worked in media, I worked for Disney, I worked as a strategy consultant in the city in London, and I ended up leaving my jobs because I realized that actually I really wanted to do something where I got to set my own hours, I got to do stuff in line with my personality, which is a real theme of free range humans, working out who you really are, do things in line with personality. And so I set that up and proceeded to have no idea what I was doing for about the first 3 months, where I played a lot of Wii boxing. That was pretty much my business startup tip: play Wii boxing.
That's good exercise.
That's literally I had no idea what I was doing. I thought I knew what I was doing when I started out because I had been a consultant, and consultants know everything. And I was pretty sure. I was like, I've done marketing, I know how to do this, and I basically realized pretty quickly in the first few months I might have known how to consult big businesses on marketing. I didn't know what that meant when you had no reputation, no following, and you're in a new field in the middle of a recession, as it was when I started out. What does it mean then? What do you do then? And that is where I started learning how things worked, and that my learnings end up turning into free range humans down the line as I made my other business ventures work out. So that's what I did. I learned by trial and error, worked out what worked and didn't work.
I love that. And what things were most effective for you, or what are the most important things that you learned during this process?
Great question. I learned first up that there is pretty much no way that you're going to be successful or happy if you hide who you are. I know it sounds really flaky, and when I started out, I didn't believe that. I heard it and I'd nod along and be like, oh yeah, that's a lovely concept for people who have that luxury. It wasn't until quite a way in that I was like, that is the best piece of business advice I've ever heard. Because what happens if you're not if you're trying to hide something about yourself. So just say you've launched something and you're like, oh my God, if they find out my age, they won't hire me. Or if they find out that actually I really struggle with this myself, they won't hire me. Or there's always a little secret. Everyone feels like they have a little secret. Right. Everyone feels it. And the more you try to hide that, the more you try to look at how you should look to others. And the only way to do that is that you'll look at how other people in your field are presenting themselves. So that's when we get copycat businesses. Yeah. That's when we get people who are wondering why they're doing things that others did and it's not working. And that's also is a direct route to blending in and not standing out. And if you're in a crowded market, which you probably are, then you have to stand out. So actually that was one of many things I learned. That was the solid step, like main bit that then you can build strategies and tactics on top of. You've got to get real with that before you've got anything to build on.
Do you know, I absolutely love that you have that as a foundation, because I run this 10-week social media course, and the first session is Who Are You? And the whole first session talks about really getting clear on who you are and what makes you unique so that you can stand out from the crowd. And I think so many people overlook that.
I love that. That's brilliant. Great starting point.
You can't do social media until you know who you are.
Absolutely.
And of course, that's a lifelong process. And it's also kind of a business-long process, because, of course, your business changes as you grow with your business. But you really need to spend some time looking at who you are and what makes you different from everyone else.
And who aren't you, actually?
Yeah, exactly.
Biggest one. Who are you not, and who are you trying to be because you think you need to do that?
Exactly.
Super interesting. I could talk about that one for an hour. It's really interesting.
So what about your business journey and how you got to where you are? Because you left your job in 2008, didn't you?
I did,
Yes.
So when I started out, I thought that I was going to be a career coach in the sense of helping other people get jobs. It's so ironic. And that was quite funny now, look at that. And
Find your own cage.
I know. I was like, find an extra cage. And I'd done a short career coaching qualification while I was working. And so I thought, what I'll do is I'll do a few things. I'll set that up. I will set up a consultancy doing the sort of work I was doing before. So marketing strategy, market research, insights, all that sort of stuff. And I'll also do something else creative like make cupcakes. So I started these several strands. The one I made money from first, unsurprisingly, was the one I had an experience in, which was consulting in my old field. So that brought in some cash at the beginning. But what really got me was I was struggling to make everything else work. I'm like, I don't understand, I've got a website, but no one's coming to it. I've been putting up these flyers for these career coaching things, and no one's picking that up, and people aren't, they're not buying. And so I went on a bit of a journey to learn how to do that, both by trial and error, also by learning from what was out there and taking courses and things like that. And what I found very quickly was there were two things that I thought were super important in making my business take off pretty fast. Oh, I should say, by the way, at the end of the first year, I was earning as much as I had been in my previous job, in a month-by-month basis, and that was from my career coaching business, the one that I was like, oh my God, how's that going to work? And by the end of the year, I'd kind of cracked it. And the two things I did that made a difference were, number one, I realized that instead of picking out individual clients all the time and going, how do I get in front of people? Where do I find them? I figured, well, why not go where they all actually are? It's the advice I got. At first people said, go where they're hanging out. And I was like, what, the pub? Like, what on earth are you people talking about? And I didn't get it. And I think it's really bad, the word go where they hang out. Not go where they hang out. Go to the person or the organization that already has a following of those people. Yeah. That's what seriously, I feel like we should go reword everyone that says go where they hang out. It's like, go to the people who already have them following them. That's all it meant. And once I got that, I was like, that's interesting. So I struck up a few relationships with different people, some individuals. I just got to know people. We came up with crazy ideas that didn't really work. But then I got together with someone else who was also starting out, and together we got to know another organization that was kind of doing okay. They had a big following, but they weren't really making much money. And I'm really quite good at helping people make money. So I was like, I can sort this out. So we went in and pitched to them and said, we already had a relationship with them because I'd been talking to everyone. No, we pitched to them and said, we'll run workshops for you in London. And we'll basically get this cut for it. And here's the long-term plan, how it would look. And they were like, when can you start? That sounds great. And so I helped them with their marketing and all of that, and they started running sell-out workshops in London, which was brilliant, because then suddenly what I did was I built my business in the first months of things actually working off the back of people who attended those workshops. It was just if we had 30 people in a workshop in a room a couple of times a month, a couple of them would become my clients. And it was just those first few. And then the second thing I did tied in with this was I started a blog. I started Free Range Humans, oddly enough, which was a side project. It was never meant to be a main business. It had a silly name. I never thought anything of it. And people started reading that. I started a little email list that was a bit boring at first, to be frank, but people were still on it. And after the workshop, I'd say, would you mind being on my email list? And so, I'd manually sign them up at that point before I got into this whole, like, how's it really work? And then I started doing things like group coaching. And by this point, I actually had a business because I'd stopped looking individually.
And you were looking more at joint ventures with people that had your list of clients.
And I was like, because my question was, what can I do that they want but aren't doing or can't do? And my answer is, I can market really well, and I'm really good at seeing how to get people making money. And so I suddenly was like, this is easy. But the thing that actually went from that was the beginning. If it stayed at that stage, I'd be doing okay. I'd probably be a bit burnt out because it was a lot of work. So what I was like, I need this to get bigger and more in flow for me. And what I realized was I love making videos and writing. And so I dove into the blog. And the blog is what changed things massively. So things really took off because people started reading the old blog, like in its old form with different articles from what are on there now. It was all about like career change and stuff. And I developed a following of people to the point where I was selling out my monthly group coaching courses, which were about discovering your ideal job, which is so ironic because I don't think there's an ideal job anymore. But at the time, I actually believed that stuff. I was actually, through working with them, I was like, I really don't want to help people have jobs anymore. Frankly, everyone wants to go self-employed. And then when that was successful, I transitioned it all to be about Free Range Humans, which then became a brand fully about escaping the corporate cage. And the reason the brand changed was A, I realized my perspective changed, but B, the thing that people asked me about the most was, how did you do it? And I was like, really? This is where we're at? Like, you want to know how I built this? Okay, fine, let's do that. And I focused on figuring out your ideal self-employed career. What would that look like? What would your ideal business look like? And that's what it became. And it was the biggest thing that made difference, aside from the joint ventures, was guest posting, which was I started doing. And I was like, oh my God, all this traffic is coming my way. They're signing up to my email list. They want to buy things. I don't even have things for them to buy. They seem to want to buy them anyway, and which is a good sign.
Always.
And, from there, building up this following, and then realizing, okay, now I'm really I start getting into social media and all that stuff. So it's quite, I tell it in, it's like, I don't usually go into that much detail, but I know that your listeners are looking at using social media and all these other things. And I think it really helps to look at the step-by-step that people do. And I find that when I was writing my book, I interviewed a lot of people, and so many people, when you get into their story, really have that beginning thing of going, the thing, when I think about it, the thing that really got me going was I guest posted on someone's blog, or I worked under someone else's brand, or I did a little venture with someone else. And it's always these connections. And guest posting to me counts as a connection. You don't even have to go and co-run. So I think it's really important to say, because I think we can get lost in the social media world of just putting out our own output. And if you've got no connections, you've got no audience.
And that's a huge aspect of what I teach about social media, is focusing on the quality of your connections and not the numbers. Because so many people just celebrate, I've got 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 5,000, whatever. But it's like, are they weak ties, or are they really good connections? How many of these people do you know?
Because do you know how many, I love to do numbers now, how many people I had on my mailing list when I was running a successful full-time business?
How many?
About 300 to 500.
Excellent.
300, I think. And I was selling out my courses.
Because of the quality of your connections. People loved what you were doing and they wanted more of it.
And I'd seen them in person, a lot of them at workshops, or they were their friends or whatever. And I priced my courses at the time at a point where I didn't need to have 50 sales a month. And I think that's a key mistake people make when they go, but I can't make a full-time living with less than several thousand. It's like, well, your price point's wrong. Like, offer a high-quality, high-end product after they've bought into you. So I totally agree with you.
So what are the biggest challenges that you've overcome throughout building your business?
Well, the first one, obviously, once I worked out how the hell this stuff worked.
Exactly.
I think there's a continual challenge in the first, after you've kind of cracked it and you've started things going, there's that challenge of who should I be and what should I do? What's my model? So I like things to be pretty clear for me. I I'd rather have something out there that's not optimized than to spend a year going around in circles wondering how to optimize it when it is out there, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So something that I think has been a challenge for me that I am dealing with at the moment and like approaching at the moment is after I put things out there, I've been putting things out there, things have got really successful in the last few years. What is most important for me to spend my time on? So do I spend my time on creating more content or on optimizing what I have? And right now I'm spending more time on optimizing what I have. So this question of what do I want to do, what's my model, and where do I spend time? And the way I've overcome it up until now has been I've just continually taken the best action I could for the best sort of like outcomes that I could. But I think it does reach a stage in your business where you have to sort of go, wait a second, I've grown to this stage. Where do I want to go now? And does that mean I need to maybe do things that are different to what my knee-jerk reaction to things is? And my knee-jerk reaction is to just launch something, which I love to do. I love doing launches. But, do I do things differently? I think that's, and depending on your personality and approach to things, that stage might happen a lot earlier for you.
Yeah.
So, luckily for me, the thing I love doing is getting out and marketing stuff. I didn't think I used to, but now I love that side. And if for you that's not the thing that's in flow, there might be a point where you have to go, wait a second, I might be great at creating the content. Do I need to sort of step out of my comfort zone now and really dive into marketing it rather than creating another course that doesn't sell? Not saying I ever had to deal with because I like the marketing side. But if that's you, that's your thing. Whereas I'm like I now need to optimize it, or I'm sure there's people listening going, I'm so optimized, I just don't have many clients. It's like, well, maybe your game needs to switch at this point.
Yeah.
And I think we all can play different games so long as we know what our core thing is. So I'm always going to be all about like the authenticity, who are you, how do you play bigger, and like putting out really great marketing. And I'm always going to have that at the core, but I know I need to step out and do things to sort of on the corners for me. And I think that's something everyone does experience, and it's really worth saying it, that you do need to do that sometimes. And it doesn't mean that you're being inauthentic to yourself. It means that you're adding other strands to that core that you have.
Yes, I love that. One of the earlier podcasts was with a coach who works with women and teaches them how to be multi-passionate and how to kind of embrace all these different interests that they have.
That's totally what my courses are about, actually.
Oh, fabulous.
Yes. Yeah, most of my clients are like scanners, they call themselves, multi-passionate entrepreneurs, or people who have so many passions. They're like, I literally do not understand how to put this together, so I just do one thing. And that's a lot of what we do.
Oh, that's excellent. I think
a lot of us are like that, actually.
And I think a lot of people just have no idea. They think that they have to pick one thing and just drop everything else, and they don't understand that there are ways to work with everything that you like.
Exactly, and that's part of this idea of who are you? Because if you're someone who has all these different interests, then fantastic. Let's like mush them all together and do something really awesome with them, which is exactly what most free-range humans people are. People like that, because I think people who are attracted to this sort of life, we tend to have lots of ideas and tend to have lots of interests and tend to be like, oh my God, I don't want to trap myself by making the wrong choice.
Exactly.
So it's part of the journey. And I don't think it ends when you decide on what your business is. I think it's constant.
And your business will keep evolving throughout time. So
exactly.
And I love the way your business evolved, because you started out working with helping people find their ideal career, and then it worked into helping people find their ideal business. So that's just such a natural flow.
It's funny because I when I started out, I said there is no way I am ever going to be one of those people who teaches people how to build a business. I'm like, look at those people. Who wants to be one of those people? And I didn't even when I started Free Range Humans as my main business, I still didn't teach that for another year. Wow. Because I was like, marketing's easy. Why do you need to help with that? Like, I was just so anti-teaching it, because I just thought, well, once they've worked out what they want to do, then clearly they know how to launch a business. Doesn't everyone? Like, read up on it. Which is a clue to what you should really be doing with your life.
I
actually,
know.
What do you do so easily that you're like, really? You need help with what? And also, I wanted to prove my strengths even more. Like, I was just like, I didn't even launch my first how to do anything with business building product till I had made like 5 figures in a month a few times. So I was like, we're not touching that stuff. Like, and I even still don't really like deal like with talking numbers too much. I think that people can get kind of caught up in, I want to be like that big immediately. I keep it very real. Like, how do you start? How do you grow it organically? But I think it's really important to say that, another thing I think is a potential trap in terms of being who you are is trying to teach something because people around you say it's a good idea to teach that, but you are really not ready to do that.
Yeah.
And you know that inside. There's a difference between stretching yourself and kind of being true to what you do and don't know.
Exactly.
Which is why I held back for so long, even though I was helping people at the time who were more successful than me, for free, and they were like, why are you not teaching this? Like, we come to you for every launch. Why are you doing this? So it was a really interesting little personal learning for me. Oh my God, if it's that easy, you should teach it.
Yeah, and I think that's also the value of getting feedback from your clients. What is it that they find most useful and valuable about their work with you?
Yes, massively.
Yeah. So what do you love most about your business?
Oh, I like so much about it. Okay, so one thing I love is the tribe I built up. I adore I don't even want a tribe. I was just like, do I have to have an audience? Oh my God, stressful. And I found it the concept of it's quite stressful. Originally, thinking I'd have a lot of responsibility, a lot of emails, and I do, but I actually quite like that. Okay. So what I love about the tribe, which is absolutely awesome, is that they're this really brilliant group, mainly women, about 80% women, I think, who really open about their journeys. They tend to, after they've done a course, like a live course where there's interaction as opposed to a passive course, they have a group they all hang out on that I have not created, and they do themselves and coordinate themselves. I'm not even in it. They become friends. They're launching amazing ventures, and they're just such interesting, lovely people that I am so lucky. If something goes out about me online that's kind of rude, they are in there. I don't have to say anything. I'm really grateful. The fact that my book it's got a shit ton of amazing reviews on Amazon.co.uk rather than .com, because I'm UK based mostly in terms of my business. I only asked 5 people at the beginning to write a review, and we're over 50. I'm I don't know who you people are, but thank you. And I feel really lucky because I know a lot of people in my space, and they haven't had that same experience. And there's something about the free range tribe that's really unique. So actually, I really love that. I love having great people. And the other thing I love is what I do is the capacity to be really playful. I mean, you've seen Free Range Humans, we're really organic in how we do things. I come up with these crazy concepts like have a free range online festival. Let's see what that means. And we do them, and people are really, really supportive of it. And you can just get playful. So I always see Free Range Humans as a bit like, when I was a kid, I read a lot of sort of fantasy books, like Enid Blyton books, all this stuff. And I had a really vivid imagination about the world. I made up these characters. I made my friends play the characters. Totally bossy. But I made these worlds. And to me, Free Range Human is this online world. I ran a recent thing called Writers Month. And in Writers Month, from the feedback I got from previous courses, before everyone joined, I sent everyone basically a free-range dictionary. And I'm like, look, you're new to the free-range tribe. There's going to be these words that you're going to be like, what are they talking about? And then we've developed our own language. And we didn't mean to. But it's like when you're a kid and you're playing with your friends. You develop these words that mean things. And people are like, what does that mean? I'm like, it's just a slang I said one day and everyone picked it up. And now it means this. And I love that we have that. We use our imagination. So on the festivals, we have campgrounds. And everyone says, I'm now pitching my tent in the Melbourne campground or in the the Los Angeles part of the campground, and we create a lot with our imaginations. And I think that's something that we've lost a lot in our world. And I love that my free rangers are so into playfulness like that. And I think it helps us with the sort of businesses that we create.
And I think that sounds like it's a lot of fun for everyone that's involved.
Yes.
So.
Oh, there's no point in doing it if it's not fun. That's what I think.
Exactly. So what are your top tips for anyone who wants to break free from the career cage and become a free-range human?
So many tips. I wrote a book about that.
We're going to get to that.
So can we get specific? What sort of areas do we want to start with?
I don't know. I mean, I think so many people are just so lost, and they just feel like I am trapped and I have no idea what to do. Like, how do I get out of this? Okay,
that's a really good point to start on. So the first thing I would say is get clear what advice you're looking for, because I do hear this a lot. What would you say? I want to get out. What's your advice? I'm like, it's completely dependent on what stage you're at. So there's this one thing I say in my book that I think is really important is that you need to get clear on whether you're trying to figure out what you actually want to do, as in like what's going to bring you alive, what you're going to get excited about, what you really want to do, versus how you're going to make it work and where's the money. They're separate processes. Like one of them uses a creative processes, which are different in your brain from your logical thought processes. So you really need to do it in stages. It goes in iterations. So you work out the idea, you get good with it, then you work out the money, you do it again and again, refine it. But I think the key mistake that people make is they get into this amazing overwhelm, and I've been there, so I totally get it. You get into this amazing overwhelm for months or years where you're like, but I kind of have an idea, but then it doesn't really work, and it's not perfect, so I ditch it, and I start another one. It goes again and again and again and again, and I never work out what I want to do that lasts for more than 3 days. And that's often one of the many reasons that is. There's a list of reasons. The biggest one is you're trying to work out what you want at the exact same time as working out how viable it would be. And you need to separate those out and let yourself explore and evolve an idea. Because, I mean, there are some ideas that really, they're not going to work that well. But once you've got into the creative stage where you're like, I've come up with several ideas. Yeah. It's almost impossible that one of these 5 ideas that you're totally into, or 3 ideas or 2 ideas, there's not a kernel of something in one of those that will work. And then you can work on that bit. Like you'll work that out at stage 2. Separate it out, get clear on it. And I guess second thing I'd say would be, if you're still in a job, don't feel that you have to quit your job immediately in order to even start figuring things out. You may want to. You may be in such a stressful job that you're like, really need to do that, and that's fine. I'm not saying you must stay in your job or anything like that. I'm just saying you don't have to. And I think there's a real misconception of people going, I have to leave. It's like, actually, you can do a lot of experimentation and self-work if you're in a job that's not actually killing you on the side. So just take those at different stages.
Yeah. I mean, you can also start blogging. You can start getting in touch with people online. There's so much that you can build up if you have energy on your spare time, on your evenings and weekends, and you can start building that tribe while you're still working.
You can. And I always find that when people actually quit their job and suddenly need to make money, that's when things actually start to work. Like it's a really weird thing. But it doesn't start to work that way if you quit your job and have no clue what you're doing. Yes. Like there is a difference. I'm like, I haven't really seen many people build up a super successful business before they quit their job. I've seen some people, but I would say 2/3 of them, that's not the case. What they do though, is do what you said. They start blogging, they start working out they make their early mistakes without that impinging on their income. And then they can make some more mistakes, but there'll be a lot fewer of them. The timeline will be shortened, and they won't be doing that thing of going, I don't know what I want to do, and I don't know how to make money. Do that if you can do it while in a job, do it. If you have quit your job, though, run with what you've got. This is more like a sort of a health check on what's available. And also realize you don't have to start out by making money from your biggest passion in the world. Like, you can do what I did and actually start making money from something you have some experience in. Like, pitch yourself creatively. Like, I totally pitched myself creatively in my new field. I was like, yeah, so I used to work in this consultancy. I totally worked in that area. You know, like, you get creative with the way you're pitching yourself with reference to what you've done before. And you can bring in money that can buy you another 6 months where you're actually free range in that time. You're not working in an office. You're working for yourself. And you are bringing in money. So don't feel you have to do it all at once. You can find other ways of making an income and give yourself that learning time.
And you're using your existing skills, so you probably have a little bit more confidence than you would if you were to just start fresh with something completely new.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely.
So tell us a little bit about your book.
Oh, it's lovely. It's like my child. So she came, I call her she, this is a weird relationship I've got with my book. So she came out in January after a lovely birthing period. It just gets weird after that. But I feel like it's my child because I put everything I learned into it. And the reason I wrote the book was, well, firstly, a publisher asked me to.
Excellent.
Actually, 2 publishers asked me to, and I chose one, so that was really nice. But I wrote it because, 2 reasons. And the first one was, this is the book I wish I'd had when I left my job. I honestly think that even though I still would have made mistakes, because I like to ignore good advice, I still would have ignored some of it. But frankly, if I'd had that, I would have done things faster and better. Because I didn't see anyone teaching it in the language that really resonated with me. And so that's what I've tried to do here, is I've taken all these concepts and advice right from figuring out what you want to do to getting started with your first things, to building up a tribe, creating consistent income, whatever it might be. I go through that process, but in a very approachable, down-to-earth way with lots of case studies. So it's meant to be your friendly guide that's not dumbed down, but is really down-to-earth. So that's what it's meant to be. And the second reason I wrote it was I was like, frankly, this book needs to exist. So if I ever decide to stop doing what I'm doing, this doesn't go away.
Right.
And I just honestly think more people need to know this stuff because it's helpful.
And I love how you included case studies, because it's not just theory. It's not just you need to do this, this, and this. It's these people have done this and they've applied it and this is what happened.
Yes, exactly.
And I think that's so much more powerful, especially for people who are perhaps fearful about breaking free from the cage and becoming free range. It probably gives them more confidence.
Exactly. And I think it's really, I tried to get a good cross-section of people as well. So I was really, I had a lot of rules for myself when writing this book, because I read every other book in the field and I was like, right, here's what I think's missing. And one of them was, there are a few exceptions, but almost no one in there is a case study. No, actually, it's true. No one is in there as a case study if they quit their job by helping other people quit their jobs. No one. I was like, not a chance, because there's too many books, I think, and too many blogs that is the case studies. I'm like, that's not helpful. That's like an industry eating itself. And so I was really careful not to do that. And secondly, I was like, no one who quit their job by helping people build up a business when they hadn't really done that before or didn't really have the experience. So I was just like really authentic case studies at hugely different stages. So some people were fairly new, so we got their experience of the whole starting out process. Some people were pretty well established. I have mums in there, even though some people I don't even say it. Like often I don't, because I'm like, I don't think you should be labeled in like a particular way, and not like you'd be like, this person's a dad. It doesn't quite work like that. It's just weird how we do that. But I was conscious of it, because it's the one thing I get mostly asked about. What about if you're a mum? I'm like, well, about a third of my female case studies are mums. So,
excellent. So
yes, even though you can go look them up and you'll find out. And we had a mix of males and females from different countries, mostly UK, because it was a UK publisher, but I've got a lot of American case studies as well. So it was really important to me that I did that sort of cross-section to show, because the thing I found is that all walks of life do this, people of all backgrounds, and because we're often only looking at the ones who stand out because that's what they do and that's how their business is, we only see a certain type of person. So that was really important. Also personality types. I'm really into personality profiles. So I knew most of my case studies profiles, and I had a mix of types, like introverts, extroverts, a whole bunch. So it's a really rounded, and I hope it works for people.
Excellent. And what was your experience like working with the publisher?
That's a really funny question. I talk about this quite openly, actually. There's the podcast with me talking about publishing elsewhere. I think it's a very difficult thing to do when you're used to running your own business and controlling your own brand, to go with a traditional publisher. It's not something that I recommend for everyone, and I'm glad I did it. Having said all this, I am very glad I did it, and my publisher was really good to me after the book came out. But you don't have control of your title, your subtitle, or your cover. And I don't love my cover, and I really don't like my subtitle. My title's all right, but I came close to actually not going through with it because I was so like, oh my God, I can't control my cover. What do you do? In the end, I decided the benefits outweighed the issues. The thing that they were amazing at, and a publisher can be great at, is when you're with a traditional publisher, you just have that, I feel you have that expectation that you're going to produce something higher quality. And it's really weird. It's not that they give you more support. They don't. I hired my own freelance editor, which is normal, by the way. No one tells you this. This is something I was talking about during my Writer's Month. I'm like, no one's going to tell you this. You will probably hire your own freelance editor. Most of your advance will go on spending money on your book. In fact, pretty much all of it. So I managed to fund my own writing. I took about 6 to 9 months to write it. I funded that by my passive product sales, not by my advance. So there was lots of stuff to consider. But the end product result was, I have got coverage from this book that I never would have got from my blog, ever. Yeah. And I am so happy I did it. So, if an opportunity comes up for you to write a book, I would, take it. It's totally worth it. But, just consider that there's all, the pros and cons of publishing.
Yes.
You get great status, but you may want to realize you pay a price for that, and that's something we're often not used to when we're entrepreneurs.
I agree, and I think that's something a lot of people don't consider, because traditional publishing has been the tradition for so long that a lot of people aren't aware of the limitations that it brings.
Exactly, yes.
So how can other women in business or people in business benefit from working with you? What do you have to offer now, in addition to your book?
My book is where I suggest people start.
Okay.
The next thing, or actually the thing to do in tandem with that, is every Friday I send out a Friday love letter to my tribe, and that's where everyone hangs out. I post stuff there that's not on the blog. It's the only place I announce my courses or anything live, because it's just how I like to do things. I like to keep things tribe-centric, and it's something that's been really important for Free Range Humans, is to have that private space. So go to the Free Range Humans website, check it out, get on the Friday Love Letter list and join the tribe. And we've got a couple of courses now, one of which is the Mini MBA, which is one where you look at how do I get my business off the ground or bigger, and how do I market it by being myself. And something that's going to come out next year is a version of our current 21-day course, which is about how to create your own career when no one job ticks the boxes. And the secret thing about that course is that that's a course, if you read the sales page now, it's pitched at people who are still in jobs, who are trying to figure out what they want to do, they have lots of passions, they don't know where to go. And it's my most popular course. It's super popular, super effective. But the secret thing about it is a lot of people who love it are actually already in their own businesses. Oh. But they have to know that. So you can do it and be in your own business, and you get huge value because it gets you to reevaluate where you are, who you are, what you want to do, recreate your options. So I'm going to be repackaging that so it's clear that there's an option to do it if you are self-employed. But right now you can still do it, but they will be like overtly able to do it next year. So that's something I'm going to move into, because I want to work more with women who are wanting to change how they're doing things to be more in line with themselves. And those are the options that I'm looking at expanding at the moment.
I love that. And I love how you're taking something that works, that's an existing product, and you're repackaging it to kind of tweak the little details on it.
Exactly, yeah.
Good. Now, about your free-range life, you're kind of based in London, but you do a lot of traveling.
Right. So right now, you've caught me in London. 3 days ago, I was in New York, and I'd been there for 4 weeks. Before that, I was traveling the west coast of America. As of next Friday, so today is Friday. So in exactly a week, we're going to Paris for 3 days, getting on a plane, stopping in Jordan overnight, flying to Bali, and we're going to be in Southeast Asia until May next year. So that's a sample of my free-range life. So our place is in London, but sometimes we're there for 3 months, sometimes we're there for 4 months, sometimes we're there for 2 weeks and move around. But I'm experimenting this year, because I spend a lot of time in Bali, experimenting this year with having Bali as a second base. And if that's the case, I'm actually going to buy somewhere there. If it's not, I have a second base in mind. So the idea is that I've been traveling quite erratically for the last few years, and I really want to have a second place that is like a satellite. So it's London and this other place. And we also go on side trips. And my business runs the whole time that I'm away, usually. That's, unless I'm on holidays type of thing.
I love that. And how do you deal with Wi-Fi in countries where perhaps internet is not...
Oh my God, that's such a good question. So the first time I stayed in Bali, I had the best Wi-Fi. I was like, Bali Wi-Fi is great. Why do people complain? Turns out it depends on where you stay. So second time I was in Bali, I was like, I cannot even send like a Skype message. So I just say, do your research. Don't get somewhere that either you haven't heard has good Wi-Fi, or that you go and take a lease out on without having stayed there a little while. But that's the only time it's happened, frankly. Excellent. I stay in a lot of different places, but I am careful about how I do it. So I have one thing I do is I don't book in any live calls with anyone, or I certainly don't book in commitments with if I'm running a live course for the first week that I'm somewhere, because I figure that gives me time to test it out and move. But yeah, you can get advice online. You can sort of look around and be like, is this country good? And once you've got the country okay, you can kind of move around within that country. So it's not a problem. And because I only run online events now, occasionally online courses, and I don't really do one-to-one work unless it's someone who's graduated from all my online courses and is really on the edge of making something awesome. I tend to package up my online commitments to certain times of year, which is something new for me. I used to coach people and I still traveled. So you can do it, but I just kind of work with my lifestyle better to do it that way. And actually, that's a really good example, Holly. You start out saying, you evolve your business. And this is somewhere I've evolved my business. So I did travel before. It wasn't an issue. But I just had to be a bit more aware of it. And now I'm just like, you know what? I want this to work in line with how I am. So I'm planning out my year differently. And I think it's something everyone can do.
I love that. Well, I know that we need to wrap this up now. So I just wanted to ask, where can people find you online?
So they can find me at a Free Range Humans blog, which is at free-range-humans.com, or you can Google Free Range Humans blog. And they can check out my book at either on Amazon, or there's the book website with a free chapter at beafreerangehuman.com, or on Twitter, Facebook. My username is always Free Range Humans. It's not really hard to find me. It's like, what's she called? Free Range Humans? Yes. So feel free to say hi on any of those channels. But definitely the Friday Love Letter is where everything happens.
Okay, and your book is titled How to Be a Free Range Human, correct?
Cool. Yeah, Be a Free Range Human. Yeah.
Be a Free Range Human. Okay, excellent. All right, well, thank you very much, Marianne. It was so lovely to speak with you, and I absolutely loved your business experience and your journey and how things have evolved over time and in ways that you never would have expected in the beginning and perhaps didn't want at the beginning. But I think that's just kind of how life unfolds sometimes, and it's just lovely how that happens.
Thank you. Thanks. It's been great talking to you.
Yeah, great talking to you too. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to the Socially Holistic Podcast with your host, Holly Wharton. Please help us help more women in business by giving us a 5-star review of this podcast. The more women who find out about this podcast, the more successful businesses there will be. So please leave a 5-star review today over at iTunes. Thank you.